Hello, town meeting members. It's my privilege to present to you the FY25 school budget on behalf of our Lexington School Committee. But before I do, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge Mr. Peter Rowe, who passed away in October. Peter served as our LPS Interim Assistant Superintendent for Finance and Operations from 2018 to 2019, so many of you may remember him. I had an opportunity to work with and learn from Peter in 2 different school districts, and everyone who knew him loved him. He was one of a kind, a true gentleman, and he will be remembered always for his kindness, humility, and his big heart. I appreciate you letting me take a moment to honor him. Thank you. Now it's time to talk about allocation. Each year, we work with the town manager and his finance staff to determine an appropriate allocation for the schools. In addition to these collaborative meetings, there are typically 3 or 4 budget summit meetings each year. By the first summit of the year, an initial revenue projection is established, and here's how it worked this year. The total revenue available for allocation was $289,296,000. $281,485,741 were allocated across both the municipal and school accounts. This left a total incremental revenue balance of $7,808,259 available for FY25. Next, we apply Lexington's revenue allocation model with 74% going to the schools and 26% going to the municipal side. This means that the schools received an additional $5,778,112, or an increase of 4.29% added to our base budget to get the FY25 revenue appropriation. The total LPS allocation for FY25 is $140,508,112. Historically, Lexington has followed the LPS enrollment trends when discussing budget, so we will continue to share that information with you and for those who are interested. It's important to keep in mind that positive or negative changes in enrollment do not always equate to the amount of funding needed. For example, we could have fewer students with greater special needs, necessitating an increase in funding to ensure that they receive the level of support that they are entitled to. This year, overall enrollment was projected to decline by approximately 91 students, but it actually only decreased by 41 students. Our actual K through 8 enrollment exceeded projections by 36 students. And at the high school level, we expected to stay relatively flat, but the projection was increased by 14 more students. The bottom line for enrollment is that it continues to be stable. A per pupil expenditure is the amount of money spent on special education by a school district divided by the number of students educated. We can compare per pupil expenditures by municipality to get a sense of how we're doing. As you can see in the chart provided, we begin with 2008. We then compare that enrollment to 2022, which represents a 14% enrollment growth over time. Next, we compare the actual net school spending for those 2 years. The actual net school spending is essentially the total spending for the support of public education, including both the school and town expenses made on our behalf. Our per pupil adjusted growth is a mechanism of how our enrollment has changed and the total resources we expend per student. By way of comparison, we grew slightly faster in enrollment than Cambridge, but our expenditures have grown less over the same amount of time, while Needham, for example, has grown about the same percentage in enrollment, but it's also grown substantially more in expense. A question that is frequently asked is how much of our budget is dedicated to special education. 14.2% of our students are identified as having a disability in Lexington. By contrast, the number of students with disabilities is approximately 22.2% on average statewide. Approximately 33% of our budget is dedicated to supporting our students with disabilities. In terms of budgetary pressures, we are in a much better position than we were last year, but this budget does present some challenges. Each year, for example, it costs approximately 3.75% more to provide the same level of services from one year to the next. With our allocation of 4.2%, or that increase, that doesn't leave much room for growth. Last year, we addressed the longstanding inequities at Lexington High School, as well as right-sizing some staffing in some of our larger K through 8 schools. Due to a failed override many years ago, some of our high school teachers were teaching 3, 4, or 5 classes depending on which discipline they were part of. We've rectified this with a phased-in plan, which requires 10 new additional teachers this year. We continue to receive students new to Lexington with varied needs, including students experiencing homelessness, immigrant families, and so on. And finally, our initial LPS budget projection was 4.75%, as presented in Summit 1. That's how much money or how much of an increase we thought we needed. What we actually received was 4.29%, which represents a gap of $627,000, which meant we needed to sharpen our pencils. Approximately 82% of our budget is tied up in salaries, which doesn't leave much room for expenses. The way that we were able to make this budget work is by reducing our expense lines by approximately 10.41%. These reductions were made in lines involving district administration and not in the classrooms, as well as through an analysis of how much is budgeted for students on the high needs list who may be in need of an outplacement. By carefully analyzing those expenditures over time, we feel confident that we can meet the needs of our students with these special education stabilization and reserve accounts if necessary. Anytime that we talk about our accomplishments, we try to do so in the context of the hard work that remains to continue to close those pernicious achievement and opportunity gaps for our students. As we continue to recover from the disruptions of the pandemic, we have lots of hard work ahead of us, but there's also lots to celebrate. So we wanted to share that with you. We are in the capital pipeline, of course, for a new or renovated high school, which brings much needed resources to the town. We have 4 nationally recognized Blue Ribbon schools here in Lexington. This past year, Hastings teacher Deshaun Washington was named Massachusetts Teacher of the Year. We continue to have high graduation rates, 99.4% overall, with 93.2% of students with IEPs graduating. The state target is 77% for students with IEPs, by way of example. We just got word that 60 LHS students who are considered high needs are being recognized for exceeding expectations on the state test. And Lexington had among the highest number of National Merit Scholars in the state. This represents 1% of all PSAT test takers out of about 1.3 million entrants. LPS has 4 scholars and winners, 27 finalists, and 38 semifinalists. We just learned that Lexington is one of 834 institutions recognized for closing the gender gap in computer science, earning the College Board AP Computer Science Female Diversity Award. Our students excel in athletics and the creative and performing arts, competing at the state level and national levels, and 6,898 remarkable, kind, hardworking, brilliant young minds are each on their own personal learning journeys, and we are so incredibly proud of everyone. We also wanted to share with you that we have a new budget book. We worked on goals. The superintendent and school committee worked together on goals. Our goal was to develop a new and improved budget book that is aesthetically pleasing, useful to residents, and worthy of national recognition. And our students contribute to that budget book each year. This is their incredible artwork. We are so proud of them, and we are incredibly grateful to all of the people who helped put this budget together, including the people listed in the slide from our finance office and many more. Thank you so much, town meeting members. We are so grateful for your support and dedication, and we look forward to the year ahead. Thank you.